Okay, good evening. It's 7 p.m. It's Tuesday, January 14th. This is the meeting of the Northborough Financial Planning Committee. I'd like to start with a roll call of members. Ken Picard. Here. Susan Sartori.
Here.
Scott Stockland.
Here.
Rob Babcock.
Here.
John Ray.
Here.
And John Rappa here. We have a quorum. First item on the agenda is any public comment? Anyone here from the public? Lisa Maselli, comments, please. Please, come up to the microphone.
Hello, everybody. I'm Lisa Maselli from 13 Maple Street. You've seen me in purple last night, but not tonight. Just a quick question. I've never really been before the new board. Well, thank you all for being here. When you go over, I didn't look at the whole packet, but I know you'll be going over different things as I'll sit and watch. I wanted to ask the question that I know that we have a 95% CD for the fire station. And meaning
95, what?
is a CD, construction detail, that gives you
Yep.
the money or the cost per
Right.
item. I don't believe you went through the 50% one that had it itemized.
This committee did not do that.
Okay, will this committee do the 95 before it goes out to bid?
You're asking me if we will?
Yes.
To be determined. Don't know yet.
All right, because it's something that we're going to have to ask for and look at, and I was hoping that that would be something that.
We'll
your
take that
committee
into
would do.
consideration.
Okay. Well, that's all I have to do.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comments out there? No, seeing none. Next item is the approval of the meeting minutes. This group last met on October 7th, 2024, the evening of the special town meeting. Hopefully you'll have a chance to read the meeting minutes, fairly brief. I move to approve the meeting minutes.
Second?
Questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approval passed, okay. Town finance updates. Jason Little, you have a number of things for us this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The point of putting this together was to go through some of these things that have happened since we last met, and some things have happened since the last time we met, which was the special town meeting happened, and the question passed for the fire station. So we are going to be going out to endeavoring to go out and borrow for this project pretty soon. So I wanted to provide some updates of what's happened since then. First of all, a question that came up frequently was ARPA. We had a deadline of December 31st, 2024 to obligate all of the money. We successfully did that through the select board. And there's a report in your packet. Looks like this, that just shows the status of the ARPA allocations that have been made.
Jason, excuse me a minute.
Sure,
Can I ask you one question before we get back in?
absolutely.
So I don't know if you know the answer to this, but I know that there was an interest rate on the bonds for the fire station that was used in the calculations. And I also know the markets have been trending higher. So do you feel like the rate, or have you had any conversations with anybody about the rate still being valid?
We have been in contact with our financial advisor, Hilltop, and they felt that it was a conservative estimate they gave us at the time. They're not asking us to veer off of that.
Okay.
Hopefully it will come in better. Hopefully municipal bonds will look like a safe investment to investors and will drive the borrowing costs downwards, but
Okay.
we'll see. The next item, unless there's any questions about the ARPA report that's in here, it's really just informational for people. I wasn't looking for questions or planning to present anything elaborate.
Jason, I just want to make sure I get the right document. It's this one, right?
It's that
Because I don't
one,
see a
yes.
heading or anything. I just wanted to make
Yeah.
sure I get the right thing. Okay, thanks.
That's it.
I would just like to either ask for or question you at this point in time. Were any of these able to move any projects off of our capital improvement plan?
I think the most significant was the Proctor School roof.
Okay.
The-
But you can do that at a later date, but I just,
sure.
just would love to hear what kind of impact it may have made.
I was going through the new requests that came through from departments this year, working up to the 11th hour on that, like, I'm a little frazzled having put together the packet tonight, but working through that, I'm not aware of anything having dropped off of the plan as a result of the ARPA allocations, because they were generally smaller, but the Proctor School roof was the most significant, and that obviously was in the capital plan at one point and came out.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay.
All right, so if there's no questions about that, again, I just wanted the committee to have the information at their fingertips, so.
Good,
It's
thank
in
you.
this packet, and if there's any questions that come up in the future, feel free to reach out to me.
Good. I'm sure we'll just look at it closely and may have comments at the next meeting, if there are. Thank you.
So, as I mentioned, most people were there. The fire station question passed, and town meeting passed the appropriation. The question passed the ballot. So we're going to move forward with borrowing. There's a schedule from our financial advisors in the packet, this next item down. It's really just to share what the schedule is and what we're going to be working on in order to issue the debt. So basically, we're going to have a ratings call in April, and the competitive sale will go out on April 22nd, right before town meeting. So it's kind of good timing, so we'll know whether our estimates that we've been advised to use are, whether our budget is going to be good or not for town meeting. So on April 22nd, we should know what the actual interest rate is,
And-
if this schedule holds.
What's the expected principal we're asking for at that time?
The amount that, I'm going to review this with the OPM prior to us finalizing these numbers, but somewhere in the neighborhood of $35 million.
35? Okay.
And the $35 million comes from the total project cost, less the anticipated grants, less any contingency that's in the program. So we may have to have a cleanup bond afterwards. But the point is to try not to borrow too much.
Right. So the 35 will handle the cash flow as the project starts to
Yeah,
ramp
so-
up?
So I didn't include it here, but I did have a cash flow analysis from the financial advice, from the OPM, that showed a fairly aggressive schedule. So once groundbreaking happens, it's something like $4 million a month is going to be outlaid. So
Okay.
we're borrowing enough to carry us through rather than short-term borrowing, because we're going to need the money anyway.
Okay.
And this next memo, this was something that I provided to the select board back in October, but this explains our free cash number. So again, as we work through the capital plan this year, the free cash that was certified will be a funding source for the capital plan. And this is an explanation for where the free cash came from. So I really just wanted people to have the information to refer to.
Questions from the committee? So you're targeting February 3rd for warrant articles submitted to the administrator, and then select board reviews the end of February, Feb 24?
Correct. yeah.
Still on track for that?
Yes.
Okay. And that gives us sufficient time to meet the deadline obligations we have, yes?
Yes.
Okay.
All
All
right,
right.
so the next item in the packet was a memo based on, it was another memo that had been prepared for the select board back in November. And this was talking about the FY '24 results. This was prior to the tax rate being set, but on the cusp of the tax rate being set for '25. And then that led into a discussion of the context of the free cash in light of the financial trend, financial summit that happened over the summer, where we looked at a long-term projection for debt for some of these items in the capital plan, and saw how that would affect tax rates going forward over a period of 5 years. And the thing that I would like to call out the most on this is toward the back of the item, is the exhibit at the back. This is the debt that we modeled. So the assumptions that we made at the Financial Trends Summit were that any capital items were going to be moved forward. They were a need of the town. They were going to move forward. And we modeled debt on anything that was in addition to $2 million of current resources. So that was worked into our plan for going forward into the next year.
So the 2 mil we should threshold.
Yeah.
Okay. I know you've got another exhibit here, but have all the departments given you sufficient feedback, up to date?
Well, we're still going through the process of meeting with departments internally here, between the town administrator who started recently and myself with department heads. So those numbers will get refined. The last item that I had was an update of all of those budget requests that have come through. And again, it's a moving target. These aren't approved by any means to move forward, but they're what's been requested.
Okay. And I'm sure another agenda item, we'll talk about scheduling dates with them.
Yeah.
Jason, quick question.
Sure.
The Northborough Capital Project fiscal year schedule that you have that has the projections on it with the colors on top?
Yeah, through the chair. John had prepared that as a sample tool to look at what we could potentially put together for a format for the report. I went back to my format because I'd already started working on it, but we can work it out. But I think that was meant to start the discussion and
John, to your
about-
point, this colored spreadsheet I developed, and you'll see footnotes on the bottom, the last 6 fiscal years, capital projects by department, police, fire, DPW, et cetera. And then the 10 years going forward, and some of that will be fleshed out further, but I did this recently. So the average capital run rate for 2020 to 2025 is about $3.5 million, and that doesn't include the fire station. And projected is there's $3.3 million on here before we start to get to these other inputs. But the police average projects was $139,000, the fire department $659,000, DPW $1.6 million, CPC $1 million and change. Just to give us an idea of, historically, what's been the run rate in the past relative to requests coming in, and then, one-time things, et cetera. So I think this is a good tool for us to look at, especially since we started late last year and we were playing catch-up.
I like that it provides a baseline and some context as we look.
Yeah.
My impression is, don't spend too much time trying to tie these right now in fiscal year '26 forward, because we're still making the sausage. We're
Yeah,
not there yet.
it is, but I thought, it's a good visual tool to get an idea of where we're spending the money.
And then is fiscal year '20 through '25, because those are actuals, does that tie out?
Those are actuals, and the source of those that I got was out of the town meeting warrants, line items that were approved.
Okay.
Yeah, like I said, it was meant to initiate a discussion over the format rather than, this hasn't been
It's to augment what you have,
approved
yeah,
or vetted.
yeah.
These two reports haven't been reconciled.
Great, thank you. Helpful.
Okay,
Thanks for doing that work.
you're welcome. Jason?
And so, lastly, the other thing I would call your attention to, besides the reference to the financial trend over the summer, was I just wanted to give people an insight into the instructions that were given to departments for their capital and operating budgets, so that's within that memo as well. So you see the questionnaire that was given out to departments that will have that information.
There's no change in the procedure from the previous year, is there?
There was a change in the procedure, whereas we asked some more developed questions in terms of what departments were requested to provide for information on their fleet list, for example, and some more in-depth questions about, driven by questions that come up among a body like this and appropriations, things like, the impact on the operating budget and so forth going forward. So we really understand everything surrounding these capital requests.
Thank you.
And lastly, it didn't make it to the online packet, but that will be updated shortly. This, it's a common format. We expanded this out to 10 years rather than 6 to help put in context some of the big projects that are on the horizon.
So let's I know this is still being gelled, we're still making the sausage, but let's look at the 26 projects that are being teed up here, especially the larger ones. $2.5 million for downtown revitalization. That's one of the largest items out there.
Is that's a committee?
What's that?
Downtown revitalization?
That was a request to the planner. That was for driven by the master plan
Yep.
process. So that did exist in last year's, it's just advancing forward. So that's one that's actually didn't change or become inflated. I think the funding source may involve some grant funding, but that would be, I think, when we have Lori in to discuss the planner's request, that's something that can be addressed.
So my observations the last 4 or 5 years is the departments have done a pretty good job in terms of sniffing out where grants may exist. I presume when we have the department heads, it'll be some of the dialogue that if there's something on the horizon that they know of, I presume we'll talk about that, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you brought forward the capital plan last year, when we were meeting so very late, you had all the funding sources already called out for each of the items. Do you plan on doing that, or are you going to be looking for input from our chair or from the committee?
Yeah,
Okay,
as we go through this,
Okay.
the funding sources will be
discussed.
specified a little more.
Okay.
There's some things up in the air, I think, with some of these projects, I think are going to be funded through grants, for example, the $2.5 million, I think that will be contingent on some grant funding. Public Works has some grant funding that should offset some of these. I know just recently we were discussing the body-worn cameras for the police. There's an $80,000 request in the budget, which I think may be offset by some state grant money as well. So,
Okay.
I mean, that's a small example, but
It all sounds good.
Yeah.
it'll come together as we work through this.
Okay, thank you.
Jason, question for you and for Stephanie. I know it's the beginning of a new calendar year, but what's the expectation from Beacon Hill in terms of aid coming our way in various forms.
I think the message has been cautious.
Right, and we have the legislation coming in 2 more meetings into the selectmen's office, so we're going to give them our list, and they'll kind of give us the news of
Okay.
what's been going on.
If I can go back to the project list, I think it's the third page in, town administration, other town departments. That line, is that for a renovating of a town hall, or what is
Yeah,
2.5 million, almost 1 million, 47 million?
yeah,
Are you reading that correctly?
the bottom line, yes, you're reading that correctly. The town office building project, that's simply the number that was provided by the architect at the end of the town office's feasibility project. That would represent the construction of a town hall behind White Cliffs.
Yep.
I think, I don't know if the decision hasn't been made publicly, but it was somewhat revealed during the financial trend process that we would be outside of our debt service policies of only incurring debt to not exceed 8 to 10% of the budget if we embarked on a $45 million project at that time, with the Peaslee School coming up, and the other point being the
Fire
fire
station.
station
Yeah.
is obviously the big one that is coming up sooner. But within those 2 projects, we would be far outside of our debt policy. So it's in here as a placeholder because, there's a lot of decisions to be made with town facilities.
Okay.
But that's simply, that number came from the architects, and that was the preferred approach to town offices at that time.
Thank you.
May I ask what drove the decision to put it in that particular year?
That was the year that the numbers were derived by that study.
Okay.
That-
So it's not
that's-
really truly an expectation that we'd be doing that in 2028 at this point?
I would say no. I mean,
Okay.
I think that
All
was,
Let's be real.
Okay.
it's not my decision alone whether. we
I
do it or not.
understand that, but I want to know
But it
where
seems
it came
pretty
from
clear
and
that-
how real it is.
And honestly,
It's
I don't-
unlikely to happen.
Yeah, and the
Okay.
Peaslee School wasn't even really discussed
Yeah, this is
as, yeah,
part of the context.
And the middle
sorry,
school.
But
correct.
part of
yeah.
the context is that with a 5-year plan, we were never getting some of these bigger projects that were on the horizon further off
Yeah.
into our debt models. So working with a 10-year 10-year window, it's much clearer that some of these decisions, it's not likely that we're going to have the ability to fund a $45 million project then if we are going to be funding an MSBA-approved Peaslee School project or something in the near term.
Having watched the Board of Selectmen's meeting last evening in the conversation that took place with John Campbell, it sounds like you're starting to put together a very measured approach of taking a look at how to handle the White Cliffs, and so it doesn't seem like you're, in the next couple of years, going to be jumping at putting an addition on that building, but,
No, if anything, we're taking the additions off.
Yeah.
And buttoning it up, yeah.
I think I think there's going to be a plan put forward to remove the non-historic portions of the building, which would have to happen anyway if there were to attach a
Yep.
large town office building to the back of the historic mansion. Those may go through the CPA, so as we said, the funding sources aren't all developed here.
Okay.
But I know there's an application moving through the CPC that was being discussed last night at the Select Board.
okay.
For providing funding for the architectural plans to do the removals of the non-historic portions of the building.
As long as I'm hearing a consensus that it does not appear that this particular placement within the plan is realistic for accomplishing.
No, it's not.
I would say it's not.
Okay, thank you.
but I put it there, so,
Well, I think
to generate discussion.
I think it's,
Well done.
I commend you for it, and I think like when I mean observation, right? Because we all have different backgrounds. 10-year plan, we're not that great. Year 6 through 10, there's not a lot of dollars in a lot of departments. 3 through 5, we can kind of do, and I think I mean my personal experience, we've demonstrated where I am that we can do 3 years pretty well, and then 5 years become okay. So we 3 to 5 year plans. It would be super useful, even if the numbers aren't vetted out, to get these lumpy things into 3 to 5 years, because I think one of the things that isn't clear to the community is the trade-offs we're thinking about when we're doing stuff. And like for me, I'm glad you put it in. So this is not a criticism, but it would have been nice to have it in here when we were talking with the fire station. And there's other things that'd be nice to have in here so we can have a more transparent conversation as we talk about how our approach, how big it should be. So that's something I'd like to see in this financial planning committee, is us to get the big lumpy stuff. And even if we don't have it correct, have it in all your, I agree with all your points, Susan, at least put it in there so we have something to talk to.
Right. And I'd like to,
I think of Peasley, when Peasley comes to mind when we talk about this, there's probably more, but the 3 I thought about, the fire station, that made me vote against it, where we had 3 big projects, so we're only talking about 1. And in my mind, the 3 big projects were fire station, town hall, and Peasley.
And in my mind, there's the Melican Middle School that's been in the capital plan since the year
I
2000.
think I think Northborough would benefit from an investment in our middle school. I think the middle school is, out of all the schools, I would rather have Peasley limp along and Melican get where it needs to be.
Go walk through Peasley.
And I'm from the Peasley district.
Okay.
so I'd like to hear more when the department heads come in terms of, how do they arrive at these numbers? If you're projecting something out 3, 5, or more years, how'd you get to that number? And if we look at this next year, how do you mark to market? If it was 300,000 last year, how much is it going to be this year? I'd like to hear the thought process on that when we get the department heads in.
So that was a part, your comments were were integrated into the instructions given to departments. I don't have that information with me
Okay.
tonight, but that should be part of departmental's preparation of their capital budget, should include factors such as that.
Understand, sure. So currently, we're looking at $6,880,000, subject to final adjustments to that in terms of capital projects for this coming fiscal year, right?
John, where again that number? Is that
Sorry?
the total? Is that the total?
Last
of all the-
page, John? Yeah,
That includes the schools?
that's everything, yeah,
Okay.
from the way I read
Oh,
it.
6, okay, yep.
Is it, can you just point me to it?
Last line,
Yeah, the-
line item on the last page,
Last page.
leftmost column.
All right, let me just, I see. Yep, got it, thank
Okay,
you.
all right.
So within the, funded by the general fund, we could subtract out what would be funded by enterprise funds. That's $450,000. I mean, that's not a huge amount.
Right.
But, so it'd be about 6.4 million. I think going back to the presentation in November about the plan to use the $4.6 million of free cash that we have, some of that would be applied to some of the other uses that it typically gets used for within the town's budget, one being underwriting the budget, no more than, our financial policies say no more than $500,000 a year, so that comes off the top. We generally use it to fund the appropriations reserve fund. That's generally $175,000 every year. We would use free cash to transfer to our general purpose stabilization fund, $200,000 to stay on top of our reserve levels so that we look good to bond rating agencies and the creditors that are going to be bidding on our bonds. The other amount was a discussion over saving for the 8 firefighters that are being hired, and that was, the idea was brought forward to create a special purpose stabilization fund so we don't get hit with $1.2 million in the operating budget in that year. It can be smoothed over a number of
Right.
years.
Right, that's prudent.
So that basically would leave $2.8 million to be used toward the capital plan. So that's a deficit of about, 3 point something million dollars. And, we can afford to borrow that if we went forward with all of these projects. And when I say affordable, it fits within the town's financial policies for debt. And those numbers were worked into our financial trend numbers over the summer. I believe these are a little bit higher now, so we'll have to revisit those calculations, but those are the type of projections that we would do in terms of deciding whether, you know, there's a decision of whether it's worthwhile to do, there's a decision of, is there going to be a cost for delaying things, and is it worth borrowing for some of these projects?
The money that's in the stabilization fund, I'm sorry,
No,
did
no,
you?
please.
That you're putting aside for the extra firefighters, is that the cost of the firefighter for insurances and everything else, or is it just the salaries?
That was the salaries and the benefits.
And the
yeah.
benefits,
But
okay,
that
great.
was in today's dollars.
Okay,
That's,
So
that's
they
fully
made,
loaded.
yeah.
okay, all right, great.
John?
Something I'd like as we approach this project, this year, one thing that was surprising, I think, to a lot of people was to see the tax rate go up in a ho-hum year of $556 per resident or above inflation. And then we've got the tax override and things like that. Should we think about what the budget, and we have historicals, how should we think about the budget in terms of a target and what that can mean to a more normal tax increase for the town? I have a deep concern based on being on this committee of Northborough's affordability to live. And I think one of the reasons people are drawn to Northborough, it's slightly more affordable in some of the towns that you look at. And that, we're losing that, like, we're gonna be right there, so it's gonna be more competitive where you live. How do we think about what that target should be? And I know it's hard, but with respect to what would be, you know, an expected tax increase overall for the town residents.
That's the difficult challenge. I mean, you're getting at the heart of it, where we look at when we say affordability, we compare ourselves to our neighbors, you know, and, you know, our surrounding neighbors. And we look at, there's two measures that we've looked at, our rank within the state of our tax bill. And over years, I mean, even though our tax bill has increased over time, our rank within the state has fallen, so our relative affordability has gone up relative to the rest of the state through that measure. Again, that's hard to explain to people because the tax rates have increased over time, but they have everywhere else as well. So the next measure was comparing the available income data from income taxes and comparing that to the relative percentage of the tax bill. And, you know, we presented that information last year and relative to our neighbors, and, you know, I think that we would continue to look at measures such as those, and I haven't looked for updated information yet, but
I think even there's an internal aspect of this. So as we do this, we're somehow having that be more visible in the process rather than reading the community advocate, good news, the bill only went up $556, and you get a quote from the select board. It would be, if there's a way to make that more transparent in this process in terms of and our capital budget largely comes out of free cash flow. I mean, besides the big chunky capital projects. And how we should think about what that target should be and would mean towards what the tax rate would increase. And I know it's not the whole, I mean, there's other budget items that affect the tax rate that aren't in the financial planning committee's purview. But in the process, it would be useful to try to keep that in mind and see if there's a way to have that be more visible as opposed to finding out after. Like, I feel as a financial planning committee member, I should have some understanding of this while we're going on, and I don't. So if, like, someone asks me in the community, well, I feel incredibly not equipped to talk or have that, or even have a, you know, at all.
well, we did make an attempt at explaining every item in our projections going forward in terms of tax impact on the single-family homeowner. I'm happy to review that if you have some suggestions of things that you think that would make it clearer. I would be happy to
A lot
meet
of towns
offline
do
with
a
anybody. yeah.
tax calculator too, so they can
Yeah,
just,
leading to leading to the approval of the ballot question, I know we had a tax calculator online that we had worked on collectively so people could plug in the value of their home and see the impact, the projected impact the next year for the fire station project. Through the financial trend process, we did incrementally break out every item that was in the projections going forward for the next 5 years to narrow it down to what the impact of every item in that projection, what it would cost for the average taxpayer.
No, I think we did a good job. I think you did a good job. Like, when you looked at that schedule, it made it pretty clear of what the impact of the fire station would be. What is less clear is the operating budget. And maybe ask some of the harder questions, if like a $370,000 hook and ladder truck for the DPW that doesn't replace anything, if that's something we should prioritize. That's an example from last year. We haven't looked at this year. But have those conversations, understand what the impact that could be in totality of all the other things that the town's looking to do to operate the town and make investments in the town.
Susan?
I think you were first. You were second.
Just in Jonathan's comment, it's more about the perception of the town and the affordability of it. Whatever that perception is, community advocate, whatever, your comment, we've actually done a great job in comparison to other communities, no less neighboring communities, we're actually more affordable and more efficient. I heard that in what you said. Is that fair?
Well, I wasn't applying a value judgment of saying that we did a great job. I'm just saying that the data reveals that, among the state, our
We've done a good
rank
job.
is, well, some people would say we're not investing in the community by not raising our tax bill relative to our neighbors and other towns too.
Okay.
So that argument is out there as well. All I was saying is that in terms of affordability, staying at pace with the trends that are going on in the state is what we're trying to do. We're trying to produce a budget that's a level service budget.
So how do we know that? And it's a fair point amongst neighbors, or any of us get asked, how do we tell people how we're doing on a relative
right,
basis?
put
to
the
hold
budget
it?
into layman's terms so everyone can understand it. And yeah, we can work on that.
And I hadn't thought about it until listening to Jonathan, but it all feels good, and I've heard comments from really everybody in this room that we've done a good job as a community, as a town, affordability compared to wherever, but I don't, as numbers people, I guess this committee, I don't have any real data or information to say how we rank. And I wasn't really looking for it until that commentary there.
There are metrics we've been privy to. So in no specific order, the road survey, what's the state of our roads? How much money do we invest in it every year? Downtown improvement, capital projects, do we provide cost-effective services to the townspeople? How we articulate that in a report helps to add to the montage I think you're looking for.
Right.
And it's good we're doing it this early in the process. So this
yeah.
is, I feel like we're in a position to be able to do this.
Yep.
As far as the benchmarks that you're kind of looking for that we could use as guidelines as we're going forward and put the puzzle pieces together to make it affordable for people, I think that one of the things that we missed and lost last year is that you came in so late and the town administrator came in so late. We didn't have the financial forecasting to get an idea of what we had to work with. So we just kind of put it all on the table and just started shaking our heads a lot and asking some questions and moving forward. So I think all of what I'm hearing here is more dialogue. We've got benchmarks now that you have done with your forecasting to have an idea of what is affordable. One of the things that I see of late is that the master plan brought forward new things that people wanted. People always wanted safety and they wanted good schools. They want an improvement in the way their town looks and the livability of the town for the kind of people that live here now. And so that is a new expense for the town that's never been really incurred. So trying to fit those kinds of puzzle pieces together too, to give the town what they need and want and still stay affordable.
Yep.
And I would also comment here, like, if you look through this plan has expanded and grown, and that's a result of trying to acknowledge some of the needs that the town has had and have been unknown or unmentioned or not talked about. You know, primarily if you look at the list of facilities projects that are in this first pass, you know, that's, over the next 10 years, that's $9 million that we weren't looking at in the past. And that's the result of, we knew we had issues, that this building, for one, you know, working here every day, knowing that there are issues with the building. It's not going to last forever. There's going to have to be some projects investment in some of the buildings to keep them, the facilities, to keep them up to standard. But again, this is $9.2 million that's dropped into this that we weren't acknowledging in the past. So I would say one thing we're doing a good job is putting these on paper and doing the exercise to show what the impacts of these are going to be.
I think one of the things too is, and I don't know, would not be expecting to solve this tonight, but I wonder if there are other metrics that we can also use in addition to our rank versus our neighbors and the rank in the state. Because look, at the end of the day, people pay their tax bills and their groceries with real money. And the fact that we're charging less than maybe Southborough gets us a few talking points with people, but at the end of the day, it doesn't make the community more affordable.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, so, again, there has to be a discussion over if we're going to retrench in certain areas, a discussion for that. So we've typically had the policy decision to move forward with level service budgets, meaning level funding, a budget would be a cut, and level services would, you know, what does that cost? And that's what we're going through the exercise of preparing. And then, you know, if that's not affordable or deemed not affordable, the discussion has to become where do we retrench and where do we generate savings?
Yep.
Lots of food for thought. So, at least for me, I want to digest some of these a little more, especially this preliminary budget that you've given us, you've put together. And then, where are you with scheduling the department heads to come in to talk to us about
Well,
their
that
proposed
was,
projects?
you know, hopefully that was going to be the next item on the agenda where I could get some impact from the board, and I can talk to department heads to set that schedule up in advance. But do you have do you want to poll the members about who they want to see first, or?
Let me think for a second. You know, in the past, you've brought the chiefs in on one night, and Scott from DPW and Water and Sewer at another, and then Greg on the schools, and then John on the CPA. I don't have any specific ordering of preference personally. You know,
I feel like
certainly-
the school department is further ahead than you guys are, unfortunately, so that maybe they could be the first you could call to see if they'd like to come in and make a presentation.
Yeah, I mean,
They've put forward their operating budget to the school committee, and they're going to be voting on it next month. So I'm sure they would probably enjoy coming in and speaking to us before they take a vote.
And having sat in a CPA meeting, they seem to be pretty much ahead also. So maybe the schools and CPA first, because they appear to be better prepared. And then the chiefs after that, and then the cleanup with Scott.
sure. Okay.
Do we want to meet specific nights of the week, every week? What's the general consensus here? Certainly, we got to get this done by when, Scott? Jason?
Oh, the point was to include the budget instructions, so we'd have the calendar.
Oh, do I have those?
Well, the budget has to be complete by the end of March. For town meeting warrant.
Capital items, we have a list though, right? So they should be ready with capital items to come to us now. right? Because we have,
That or the fine tuning.
Right, I mean,
And,
these are all
yes.
submissions that have been turned in. So
well,
whether
they can
the,
talk to us ahead of their regular budgetary operating
They
budget.
can,
They can
yes.
talk to us about the capital.
Yeah.
So I think the sooner we start talking,
Right,
the better.
yeah.
It doesn't really, to me, it doesn't make a difference.
Right.
On what order it is.
Yeah.
As long as we start talking.
Right.
well, with some input from the committee, I'll reach out to the schools first and put together a calendar that will work with the department heads.
And another thing I'd like to bring up, is it possible, I heard one of our other members talk about it, excuse me, is maybe meeting at 6 instead of 7. We have 2 administrators here we got to deal with, right, with your time. No, it's being courteous.
I was only here till 11 last night.
Yeah, so
Only,
Yeah.
I'm
we don't
fine
want to
with
see that to
6.
become a trend.
Yeah.
So, I know, I would like to meet earlier.
Can we collectively agree on 6 or 6:30 as a start time, as a committee? John, is that okay with you?
It should work. I think
Okay.
dates matter too, but
Let's say-
it should work, yeah.
Okay, so 6 as a start time. And then,
I thought we were going to try to do alternate, or at least do the finance boards on a Tuesday each.
Right, so that
week,
was the
so,
vision,
yeah.
that this committee would meet every other week on Tuesdays.
Mm-hmm.
And on the alternating weeks, we would be meeting with Appropriations Committee.
And Tuesday is a good night for schools in that they usually meet every single Wednesday night.
is the alternating every other week for us sufficient to get us to the target?
It should be, yeah, unless there's problems with availability.
Okay, all right.
Like I said, I'll reach out to I'll reach out to the department heads that have been requested or have projects in the plan, and we'll put together a calendar.
Fine.
And
So-
if we could sketch it out a little bit in advance, it'd be helpful. One of the things I struggle with my schedule is maybe the minority here. I've got 13-year-old, 15-year-old. So,
Two 14-year-olds, their birthdays today.
Oh, and where are you?
That's great.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, well,
Well, they're teenagers, so I don't know
no,
how
I
great
hear,
it
I
is.
hear you. But it'd be useful to just kind of like, and with travel, I can control my travel schedule if I find out with enough time. So if we can plan it for the dates, that'll be useful for me.
Well, let's operate this way till further notice. We start with the next meeting on the 20th, every other Tuesday, starting at 6 PM. So plug that in your calendars, subject to any deviations from that. How's that work?
It doesn't, and that's what I'm asking. The 28th is the one week I can't control my schedule on the 28th, but other than that, outside of February vacation week, I can.
Well, how about we do the 29th that week, a Wednesday? Does that work
Yeah,
for?
Is that starting with the schools?
They meet on
They-
school committee
they
meets
can't
on
meet
Wednesday.
on
Oh,
Wednesday
on the
nights.
29th.
Well,
I
can
could
we
do
take another
Thursday.
department? That's
Okay.
all.
Oh, yeah, we
I
can.
could do Thursday that
Pick
week.
another department.
The 30th?
Yeah.
So
And then after that, I'm
for the
pretty
next
clear
meeting,
after
we'll
that.
do the 30th, and then we'll fall back to Tuesdays, every other Tuesday after that, yes?
Except for February vacation? you
Please,
can't?
yes. I'm trying to be a good dad.
Did you get that? All right, so the next meeting potentially is the 30th, so whoever you can get, bring them in.
Yeah, I'm going to be on vacation sometime during the February vacation week as well, so
We can pass a meeting night that
we
night,
we
that
may,
week.
have some conventions that, for other days around that date.
I see you two talked ahead of time.
All right.
So we're going to start with the schools, hopefully? Is that what you're going to try to do?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
And if not, we have other departments
other
that are
departments, so
all
We
set.
got to get it done, so
Yes.
just get
Okay.
it done.
Yeah. I'm
All right.
not worried. They're good.
Any other business? So I think at our next meeting, now it's January 30th, we'll talk about election of officers at that time. So let's think about what a slate might be between now and then,
I'm sorry, election of officers?
to be discussed at the next meeting.
I don't understand what it means.
We'll have elections at the next meeting, John.
So you elect a chair, a vice chair, a clerk,
at the next meeting.
Every
next
special
That's the
like that.
clarification I was looking for, thank you.
Sorry.
clerk knows.
Season telling people, I get it.
Anyway,
It's like, I get a badge?
I'm like, yeah,
any other business?
Because you'll understand it all.
I'm afraid of that.
Yep.
Any other business? Move to adjourn?
So moved.
Any, second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned at 7:50 PM.
Awesome.
Short meeting tonight. Jason, Stephanie, thank you.
Thank you.